Yeah. Not self-government.
That's right.
And I wondered what that meant
Sure.
and why not self-government at that time.
Sure. So when did Nunavut become a territory? 92? Thereabouts. It was 92. I was 12. I think it was around that time. So they were one of the earlier negotiated agreements. Now at the time, there wasn't the self-government policy that then came in 1995. But they did have, there were some groups before. There was the Quebec, Cree, and Inuit that had negotiated the James Bay Agreement in the 70s. So there was an option to either sort of be a more self-government, sort of just in relation to their members, or becoming a public government and creating the new territory. And the thinking of the Inuit was that, well, we kind of make up 85% of the population. So even if we had a public government, meaning they have a government that looks a lot like the provinces or like other territories, right? They have an elected government, and they kind of sit like our legislative assembly does. They pass laws like our legislative assembly does. So they kind of follow, for all intents and purposes, maybe to your sort of thing, a model that looks pretty Western and Westphalian. But they're kind of still doing some neat things. I wrote this paper this summer about the use of Indigenous languages for revitalization of Indigenous laws. And I studied what's happening in Nunavut a little closer. And they have many, many laws that incorporate Indigenous legal concepts in them and require that, even though they're written in English, they have these Inuit legal concepts written in, and they have to be followed. And there's like committees of Inuit elders and knowledge holders that are consulted in the interpretation of it. And there's a whole bunch of even legal cases coming out of Nunavut where you get, often it's still mostly non-Indigenous judges, non-Inuit judges, but there's a bunch of criminal law ones where you get a judge who's lived in Nunavut for maybe 20, 30 years. He's applying Indigenous legal concepts in interpreting the Canadian criminal code. So it's really fascinating. And so we are seeing this sort of melding of two legal orders coming together and coexisting in an interesting way. So in some ways it's sort of kind of playing with the two, but that's, so Nunavut's a really interesting example where in some ways they're sort of operating within sort of Western paradigms, but bringing into it some Indigenous stuff. But there's still issues. Like I've talked to people from Nunavut who are, somewhat, still dissatisfied with a number of things about their public government. Some wish they had gone more the self-government route, but it's still an interesting sort of case study, and we'll see more of what comes from them.
Well, if that's it for the questions, and maybe we can do our little closing.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
I was wondering what could we do to hold governments accountable?
Yeah, so thinking about this a lot, I do think we have elected governments who can pass laws, right? And so as citizens, I think we should be calling on, there's all the things that we're doing within our own, our universities, our social groups and things. So those are all great things that people are doing. So that's not to say that, there's ways that we can do that. But I think as engaged citizens, there is the pressuring of our elected officials to actually be taking steps to passing more legislation, like I forgot your name, Maz's question?
Me?
Yeah.
Mal.
Mal's question. But like more sort of engaging in legislative reconciliation. In Nova Scotia, maybe, I don't know if the Houston government's going to go for it, but passing their own UN Declaration implementation bill, that would be kind of cool. Actually, I'm talking with Claudia Tinder about that some point soon, and some other folks, hopefully. I would think that maybe asking our governments to be more accountable and to actually be passing legislation. I think that with that legislation, it shouldn't be unilaterally passed either. Like all of this has to be kind of co-developed with Indigenous people. If I didn't say that, I sort of implied, but the work that needs to happen has to be done in consultation and co-developed with Indigenous people. And there's some work to do about how you do that well and what that looks like. But I think that could be a significant one, as well as the work we're doing within our institutions to make people more aware of issues, learning issues, reading more, learning about Indigenous law. So, yeah.
Anybody else for a last official question?
I've got another question, if that's okay.
Good.
So, I think it was last week, maybe the week before, that we saw the RCMP go into the Wet'suwet'en, I don't know how to pronounce it, the Wet'suwet'en.
Wet'suwet'en, yeah.
Yeah, camp and start arresting people in order to drive the pipeline through.
Yeah.
So, I guess my question is, we've talked a lot about like the role of the state and different forms of law and their histories. Is there a space here for, I don't know, I guess the other players like private business, or what people would say, you know, the business world or private enterprise? Because to a large extent, the government in that situation is supporting the oil producers,
Yes.
the oil refineries, and people who build the pipelines. So I'm guessing. So I'm just wondering, what effect do they have on the legislation in this subject in Canada? And is it
Yeah.
similar to like the States where like people say like there's like a corporate oligarchy that controls the government to a certain extent? But
Well, what do you think? I'll turn that question back to you on that one.
well, I would say, well, I don't know. I'm very much a leftist, so I would go like yes, huge influence.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting, and I think that's going to be some of the hardest issues, the land issues and resource issues. And I mean, I think, you know, child welfare in some respects, even though it was challenged at Quebec, is a almost like an easier way to start to drive that door open. But like issues of land, especially with capitalism being what it is. But you know, I mean, capitalism is, you know, in some ways, you know, having to also grapple with climate change and issues of income inequality, and I think like these are all issues that are sort of putting pressure on capital. Whether there'll be any massive dramatic changes as a result of it, I hope, but I don't know. But I think. So, for example, in the Wet'suwet'en case, there was actually a court case where some of the land defenders had actually cited Gitxsan law or Wet'suwet'en law as part of their defense. And in a decision that was highly criticized, the judge was like, yeah, we kind of recognize Indigenous law currently in Canada, but it's still really nascent, and so I won't really deal with it in this application. And I think, and that was criticized harshly by the Indigenous Bar Association and some other Indigenous scholars and non-Indigenous scholars. So I would maybe hope that the introduction of Indigenous laws and its recognition in Canadian law will hopefully help in sort of achieving that balance. I think there's other things that are pressuring our move away from mass extraction and fossil fuels and all of these things. But I think that our law is also capable to change. Law is slow moving, but I do think that there is room in there. I teach a case to my students. It's not about Indigenous law, but it's about you know, unions picketing and how Canadian law for a period of time prevented any type of picketing outside of the employer, right? So it's called secondary picketing. It was a common law rule, and the Canadian common law is the handmaiden of capitalism. Let's just be clear about that. But you know, in a court case, the Supreme Court said, well, charter values, and there it was sort of the right of the union to picket and to protest, and that was protected by freedom of association as well as freedom of expression, meant that this rule that really protected, you know, secondary businesses from having any protest or picket, they said, no, we've got to balance these differently. That, you know, there's got to be only if the protest or picket is causing, you know, harm, like some other type of tort or criminal law, then is it a problem? I mean, so it was some sort of balancing of the law, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Not that was a perfect solution in that case, but I do think the law is capable of sort of changing and balancing and bringing in other sort of values that could be counterweighting. But it's not going to be easy. So I don't know if I answered that one as well as I could have, but yeah, some thoughts on that. But yeah, I know that I'm very optimistic, but I think that that's going to be a huge challenge. But I think we've got more allies now than perhaps we've had before. I think it's in a lot of different groups' interest to be working together against big companies and, you know, the massive laissez-faire capitalism. Sam?
All right, I guess what we can do is the closing now, and then I'll just mention last thank you, and actually we have an evaluation that we appreciate if anybody would care to just take a quick, give us some ideas about how to do this, maybe do another topic or something like that. And those are right up there on that table. But anyway, I introduce Andre Camillo.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
Quay. Bonjour. Am I both on camera here?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
They're over.
Oh, don't fall over.
Well, hello everyone. Yeah, I'm Andre. That's my GST name. The Ojibwe people gave me my name, Ajakakiwa Mutik. It means, translated loosely, my spirit is like the oldest tree in the forest, for what that's worth. So you mentioned rainbow. You truly are a rainbow, Naiomi. I mean, you're shining. Your spirit shines out of you in
Oh, thank you.
brilliant ways of charisma and beautiful energy, and
Thank you.
your passion for this. Wow, blow
Thank
me
you so
away.
much.
So I'm going to do some thank yous. Red Bear, Healing Home, in no particular order. A lot of people did a lot of hard work to put this together. Charlotte, Mal, Jack, Carla is outside there with Haley at the desk, and Matza, who's not here this evening. So I thank all of you, without you. All of the people that came here. Wow, there's Haley. I'm sorry, I thought you were still outside. So like, yeah, 5 people, whatever. You know what? 5, 50, 500, it doesn't matter. Like, this thing here is going out on the internet. It's being recorded. So maybe 5,000, right? 500,000, 5 million people. Who knows how
And
many
that's
people?
optimism.
Right. So, yeah. It's getting out there. The message is getting out there. I'm not going to speak too long, I promise. I don't have any notes. I just do it from the heart. So, I mean, these are all thank yous, right? All of you people came out here and put all this together. So, without you. Naiomi, wow. Like, that was so much. You know,
I have I'm a little bit overly comprehensive. It's
No,
something
it's
I'm
great.
trying to work on.
and, you know, I mean, I'm kind of partly knowledgeable about what you spoke on. So many things I had no awareness of at all. And so it's being recorded, so I can go back and go,
Yeah.
okay, what was she talking about
Yeah.
there? So, I mean, that's a miracle of our modern
There
technology.
you go. And I'm also reachable by email, so if you had a question or any of you wanted to reach out and just ask about a resource, happy to oblige.
Thank you. Yeah, you know, we don't give up hope here, right? I mean, this has been going on 500 years. And in my time, I've seen changes, and it's slow, snail's pace. You do have lots of allies. There are people like myself and others here, I won't name any names, but you know, we're all there behind the scenes. Prayer, the power of prayer, I'm sure you know all about it. You know, and I go into the Sweat Lodge and I pray that our leaders, our corporate and political leaders who have way more power than little people like me, you know, open their hearts and minds to see, you know, the truth of our time, right? We are all children of this Mother Earth, right? My elders passed on now. He used to say, you know, there's only one race, that's the human race. And here we are on this bright blue ball spinning freely through, you know, wow, blow me away. Right? So anyway, yeah. And I think, you know, time has changed, right? We're gonna do we all work together on this. Every single one of us has a part to play, big or small. So, and your part, Naiomi, is like, wow. Your passion and dedication and like energy coming out. So,
Will all in, thank you so much.
so we're not in ceremony here. There's in our way, in Mi'kmaq way, and other First Nations people, you give a gift, and tobacco is in here, one of the 4 medicines, and some other little things. So we hold it up to the Creator first, in the left hand, and offer to the left.
Thank you.
And say without you.
All in.
And the white man likes to take your hand, squeeze it to death, it's like, yeah, I'm bigger and stronger than you are. You know what we do? You take the person's hand gently, you feel that person's spirit, and you say, wow. Right? Anyway, I'm not gonna go on too much longer. All my relations.
Thank you so much.
And last,
Thank you
thank you to Nightly. And
Thank you.
thank you for doing that.
Thanks, guys. Have a good evening. Lovely, lovely.